Most of the time, most of the people here spend, you're looking at your customers, trying to get into their mind, understand what makes them tick, become experts at what's happening inside your customer's mind. And what I'm going to try and talk about today, and my theme is becoming an intelligent customer. Right? Which type of customer would you prefer to have? Someone who's perhaps type 1, naive, unquestioning, accepting, reactive, blindly loyal to suppliers, unaware of costs, unaware of alternatives. Or perhaps somebody who's experienced, questioning, challenging, proactive, commitment based on clearly measured benefits, fully aware of costs. Now, intelligent customers, what is an intelligent customer? Intelligent customer is somebody who negotiates cheaper deals for the same or better services. Somebody who's not afraid to talk about money early on. When you've got that crisis and you're in desperate trouble, that's not the time you want to talk about fees to your PR consultancy. Now, intelligent customers sort that out before they actually get involved in the contract. The last thing I would say, however, is ironically, intelligent customers are attractive to intelligent suppliers. There's increasingly smart agencies out there who understand pitching processes are wasteful. The markup is at an end. You've got to charge a realistic fee for realistic services, but perhaps try and recover revenue from fees and not from other spend areas. So the first thing I would ask about, if you're looking at trying to become an intelligent customer, is choosing an agency. What do you want? Advertising, direct marketing, PR, sales promotion? None of the above, actually. Think about it. My first lesson in marketing about 20 years ago down the road was marketing myopia, if you remember. Focusing on ends, not means. What you guys want is brand awareness, profits, preferences, sales and possibly recognition, all of these things. These are means to an end. Agencies love bad briefs. It's a great excuse for embarrassing questions later. What was included in the fee? What wasn't included? What were we supposed to do? A clear type brief, if I can use that expression, sounds a bit rude, conveys professionalism and focus. It conditions the supplier immediately. We mean business. We know what we want. And if you ask most serious agencies, they like clear type briefs, not woolly sort of descriptions of what you think you want. Remember to say what you don't want. If you don't need award-winning creative directors, say that, otherwise you may end up getting them. And at €800 an hour for creative directors to do a version of a package for a simple shot for a sales promotion, that's not what you want. So remember to say what you don't want. Commissions from a whole range of third parties, which we'll come back to later. Third-party production markups. This is a very interesting area. For years, 17.5% or so is added lazily onto almost every third-party piece of spend. We're seeing newer suppliers now agreeing that this is something that has to come to an end. It makes no sense from a procurement point of view. It actually encourages you to spend more of my money. Quite happy to pay that good fee, but why should I incentivize you to spend more money on a more expensive supplier? Oh, beg your pardon. Agencies also have costs, of course, and one thing I think that you should think about is asking them what it will cost to serve you, and perhaps considering negotiating those costs. Clearly, you would have a preference for paying for talent, so we want to see most of the money going towards direct staff. Particular overhead you might be interested in is corporate recharges. If your agency is owned by one of the big 7 or 8 huge agencies, what's Martin Searle telling them they must send back from Ireland? No matter how successful or brilliant they are, they may be told about a certain amount of money. That's okay if you're using them internationally. If you're not, you're paying for something that adds no value for you. And to my knowledge, that doesn't make sense. It's not intelligent. The same to me in marketing. Why relate fees to production or media spend? Traditional ways. Pay a higher fee, absolutely, but pay according to the work. And again, you might find an agency is encouraged to spend more money than necessary here. No apologies, procurement person, pay higher fees. Absolutely happy to pay higher fees, but we push for transparency. Professional procurement type approach is, procurement people don't mind asking the difficult questions. We don't want to step on your creative toes and damage the chemistry. So check team roles. Like we said, do you need a creative director? You could well be paying for one. Does account management get cheaper over time? A smart agency quite rightly would say, the more we work with you, the more experience and brilliant brand insights you have. Absolutely, I'll pay you more for that, but it's easier to deal with, so you know where we are. What if you've never paid an agency late in your life, you had a 5-year relationship? Why are you paying for their credit control? Now, these might be uncomfortable questions, but these are the way the smart, intelligent customers behave. And these are rational questions. They're not nasty or difficult, which is not a procurement approach. Pitching costs. The most First one is high risk. We're seeing some companies in London doing it. If you spend a lot of money on third party, and you know it's fairly basic stuff, print, etc., it can make sense to decouple that. Pay the agency their healthy fee, separately buying the production. But that comes with a serious health warning that you need to know your stuff when buying production, whether it's TV or print. You can insist on a lower markup. Most people don't, so they don't get it offered. Ask, what is there to lose? I've seen a post-production studio with 8 people looking at a TV screen, somewhere around €800 an hour. When there's smart companies in town that can do that for 2 people. One smart post-production outfit can do that if you guys sign off approvals quickly, but you don't do, so it's your fault. Creative director has a great idea, is thinking of the concept, rings you up, no answer, 2 days later the answer gone. They're on the clock, they charge again. So marketing clients have a lot to answer for in terms of not being responsive and quick enough on the whole approval stage in the creative process. I actually disagree. I would argue that it's smart, and the clients I've helped make more money out of procurement. Over-servicing is reduced, the thing that bleeds PR consultancies to death. Person will push you hard for a good hourly rate, but they don't expect you to work for free. And agencies will work for free. Foolishly, they will pitch for free. They give away the creative and they charge for the execution. It should be the other way around. Agencies have themselves to blame for being naive. And if they're being naive, exploit it, but they're going to change as well. Both sides are going to change in the future. But a better contract is what you'll get with procurement approach. Not yet seeing much of this in Ireland, but it's going to come. It has to. Professional procurement would generally help you with specialist market and cost knowledge. They understand what the rates should be. They actually negotiate effectively on your behalf with agencies. I think more importantly, point 3 there, they can separate the difficult money topics from the creative topics. So there's a huge issue here around separating the money from the strategy issues, and that's where sort of having this separate commercial conversation to the creative pitch, I think, makes a lot of sense and is an intelligent approach. This is where media auditors can help you. There's a very strong argument to separate planning from buying. There's a planner I met recently who's developed a new system of marketing in London where they put ads in the back of buses upstairs in rough areas, which is a definite segment. Micro-marketing, which we alluded to before. What agency could make money on buying that? But you will sell that idea for a few £1,000 or 100,000. So therefore, many of the best media ideas can't make money on commission. It's not intelligent. Don't be fooled by low commission rates. I can charge you 2% commission and still make a lot of money in other ways. Pay the fee for what you're paying for and don't be fooled by low commissions. There's hundreds of ways of clawing back more money in media. There's no need to go through it, but one example is 7% of ads don't run as booked. And in most cases, the media owners will not charge. Do you go and check for all of those ads? Have you been paid back? We're not suggesting that the agencies won't give it to you, but if you don't ask, you're going to be fairly stupid to give you guys money back. So ask, audit, occasion. So in conclusion about pitching, there's a chicken and egg problem here. If you don't require your agency to pitch, their creative energy is going elsewhere. If we do require them to pitch, we're wasting their energy and money. And there's always going to be one dumb agency who will turn up and pitch, even if it costs them thousands, and we see that happening. So there's a chicken and egg problem. I'm not sure how it's going to be solved, but the long-term future has to be, if I'm going to make a presentation with 5 people, spending 6 weeks preparing, I'm going to have to charge. But like we said, a lot of ads don't appear as booked. Time spent often differs to that budgeted. They use a more junior person. It's quicker and easier to do. Suppliers don't always raise invoices. You would be surprised the number of suppliers who never send that invoice to your agency. And that's one of the problems in the UK, and we're talking millions of pounds here. And surprise, surprise, credit balances, if you do an audit, are far more common than debit balances. I wonder why. Well, only an insane agency wouldn't come and say you owe me money. So I think you can draw your own conclusion. Check if you're owed money. It's boring, but it's a way of freeing up money for a lot of big spend items, particularly when there's lots of third-party spend. So one tip you might say there is if you have to pay an estimate, in many cases we do, an agency is not a bank, completely free, and it's wrong to expect them to pay for the Burlington in advance for your conference if it's a PR consultancy. But rather than paying 50-50, why not pay 50% now, 40% when you've actually done the job, but we're going to keep 10% for all those suppliers who might forget to send an invoice. And it happens. And you'd be surprised how often it happens. A few pitch doctors around, advertising consultants, people save you looking at all the different agencies. Pick out the agencies most appropriate for you. Dan mentioned PR, and I see direct marketing with somebody coming later. Maybe you don't need advertising. When it's hard and hard to break through the clutter, clearly PR has a role to play. Remember, it cuts both ways. There's too much pushing from the client side saying, show us all your costs. Fine, but transparency works both ways. If we get you clearly into the papers in a way that we couldn't have gotten your own without my help, I want some of that money back as well. Being intelligent will save you money. Being intelligent doesn't mean bashing agencies. I think agencies can make more profit from intelligent customers. They don't waste time. Their creative people are doing what they should be doing. Their production people are doing what they should be doing. So it's not about bashing agencies at all. But thank you for your time and attention.
I believe the marketing communication industry is going, and also to pose some questions, because I think we'll all agree that the jury is definitely not in yet in relation to where this industry is going. Lord Leverhulme is the gentleman who coined the famous phrase that we're all sick of hearing. Every time you go to a marketing seminar or you pick up a paper about marketing effectiveness, we have to listen to half my advertising budget is wasted. I just don't know which half. Half my advertising budget is wasted, and now I know which half. And by the way, I'm taking acknowledgement for it in case I ever become as famous as Lord Leverhulme. And the answer to the question which half is, very simply, it's the half that we can measure. And while that may sound like a very flippant answer, it really is the answer to the question. Today, over 50% of marketing communications expenditure in developed markets is on measurable marketing communications. It continues this time for marketeers to become more proactive, all of us, in addressing this subject, because we work with disciplines within organisations that are very used to working by metrics. So whether it's finance, or whether it's manufacturing, or whether it's R&D, their parts of the organisation are metrics driven. And so it's time, and I think we're all seeing the changes in the industry, that marketing metrics becomes core to what we do. And what's interesting about it is that the advertising, core advertising industry business is growing, but I think it's largely on the basis of inflation, while the below-the-line spending is continuing to increase. And that's for two reasons. Number one is that there's money moving from above the line to below the line, but there's also additional monies coming into the market in order to use these media. Mass media tends to focus on building brand identity, whereas below the line tends to focus on calls to action. It may or may not drive response in above-the-line media, but increasingly we're seeing that it does, whereas individual responses is key to below the line. Above-the-line media is difficult to measure, and that's part of Lord Leverhulme, half my ad budget wasted dilemma that we've had in the industry for a long time. Why is it that metrics is such an issue for marketing people? What is it that we're all afraid of? Well, I think fundamentally what it is that the change is so huge that we're looking at. I mentioned in my outline that I believe that the industry has changed more in the last 5 years than it has in the past 50. And fundamentally what it's about is the question of, is it time for a new marketing model? Have things changed so fundamentally? Is this evolution or is this revolution? And then I found that Kevin Roberts, the CEO of Saatchi Worldwide, said successful models we grew up with don't work. The consumer is boss, there's no more mass market, and the consumer is driving the flow of information. I believe that the future is so bright that we're all going to need shades. And the reason why we're all going to need shades is that the new world of marketing, for me, is what I call 3D. And those 3Ds are direct, database, and digital. And while integrated marketing is going to be fundamentally what we're all focused on, I think it's going to make less and less sense to talk about integrated marketing communications if you're not savvy in these three disciplines of direct, database, and digital. And the reason for that is that it's not that direct marketing itself has decided to change. The whole world around us has gone direct. There's some from telephones, for example. We all use mobile phones. I find it increasingly frustrating to deal with people in business who I don't have access to a mobile phone. That iTunes in the US has just announced that they've been responsible for over 10% of music sales in the US in 2005. That service has only been running, what, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years, and it's already responsible for 10% of music industry sales. So, you know, you can hazard a guess at what it's going to be next year, the year after. Why? Is the low level of penetration of direct mail in Ireland. Approximately 30 items per user here are per customer in Ireland, versus over 100 in the UK, and I think the figure in the US is close to 400, which is probably overkill, but really the point I'm trying to make is that it's an industry that's really developing in Ireland. Technology has allowed mail formats to change to the extent that it's possible to go way beyond traditional direct mail, to use dimensional mailings, to use different types of envelopes, different types of substrates that really get people to read your marketing message. And finally, I think it's important, wearing my hat as Deputy Chairman of the IDMA, to highlight the fact that the standard of agencies in Ireland for direct marketing is as high as you find in any other developed country. I did want to point out that, in the last 3 years, Irish direct marketing agencies have won top award in the Direct Marketing Association conference held in the United States. These are the Oscars International Direct Marketing business. So I think it's important to understand that while the market it has lots of room for development, the services are here and the expertise is here in order to drive that. The second D in the 3 Ds is databases. And for anybody who has experience in data marketing, I can officially tell you that database marketing is now sexy, driver for successful marketing. Customer information and the ability to be able to find it, the ability to be able to manipulate it, and the ability to be able to use it is where more and more marketing money is being spent. Accuracy of databases. And this is really where marketing meets IT. It was one of the things that I experienced when I worked as a client on the marketing side. This is a survey that was taken of top marketeers in the US, asking them their intentions for online advertising purchase in 2004, 2005 and 2006. And that 18.7% of top marketeers represents the percentage of their total marketing spend that they intend to spend on online. And that equates to about $16 billion. Google alone generated $5.3 billion in online advertising in 2005. And Microsoft recently announced that of their company, and they're an $80 billion company, is going to be bet on the online advertising industry. That's how seriously they're taking it. So this is very much going to be one of the key drivers of the marketing communications industry over the next few years. There are 5 key drivers in online marketing for me, and I call them the Fast 5 because they're growing so fast. The first I've touched on already, which is online advertising. The second is email marketing. And email web blogs is another phrase that we hear being bandied about. And you're going to find your customers, whether you're in business to business or whether you're in business to consumer, actually talking about your products and your services. Last but not least is viral marketing. Ability for people to be able to log on to the internet and talk about your product.